Taxi is a 1998 action comedy directed by Gérard Pierre.
It centres on a pizza delivery guy by the name of Daniel, who's played by Sami Nesseri. As we start the film, he's on his last delivery run. He's quitting the pizza delivery gig to become a taxi driver, hence the title. He's got a souped-up Peugeot 406 that has lots of hidden underskirts and sporty stuff and a spoiler that pop out when he wants to go a bit faster. Doesn't really have much regard for the traffic rules around Marseilles, which is where the film is set. Yeah, he's constantly trying to avoid the police while looking for fares in his taxi. We also follow a bumbling young police officer by the name of Emilien, who's played by Frédéric Diffenthal. He's just failed his driving test for the 8th time, so he's a bit of a joke in the office. No one really takes his police work or him particularly seriously. There's some bank robberies happening around France, and these robbers seem to be on the way to Marseille. The commissioner is desperate to be the one to catch these crooks. They speed around in souped-up Mercedes-Benzes, and they're from Germany. Emilian happens to have a taxi ride with Daniel and arrests him after he reveals that he's a policeman and witnesses Daniel speeding and basically having disrespect for the police. Then realises actually he could use a driver, as he can't drive himself, because Daniel has a knowledge of fast cars and where these Germans might be getting their cars worked on and getting the tyres, etc., to do these bank jobs. He says, okay, if you drive me around and help me find these bank robbers, I'll wipe the slate clean for you. The rest of the film is sort of a buddy cop movie, kind of. They race around the town looking for clues and trying to catch these guys.
I do love how they never question who he is.
No, he just hangs around the police station, doesn't he? And no one ever says, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Weren't you arresting him earlier?
Yeah. It was good fun. I quite enjoyed this. I hadn't seen this before, and I looked it up when we were trying to choose what to do this week. And of course, it was written by Luc Besson. It was written. He wrote it in 30 days. I think while he was waiting for Fifth Element to kind of either be greenlit or something. I mean, obviously, it wasn't directed by Luc Besson. You can't really look at it and go, "Oh, that's a Luc Besson film." Apart from this, I found it a little bit similar in tone to one of his early films. I think one of his first films, actually, Subway, which is the Christopher Lambert film. But that's got a similar kind of humour, I think, in that one to this one. I wouldn't say any of his more famous films. I mean, obviously, he's known for The Fifth Element and Leon and The Big Blue and many films like that. But obviously, this isn't directed by Luc Besson. It was directed by Gérard Pierre. Although actually, it was also directed by a guy called Gérard Krawczyk. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce his name. I can't be sure about that. But so apparently, Gérard Pierre broke his leg during production, and this other guy stepped in. And that guy actually went on to make the 3 sequels of Taxi that appeared over the next few years. It was good fun. It's very 90s, I think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I thought you picked it because you'd seen it before.
No, I hadn't. I thought maybe I'd seen it before. It's a poster I recognised, and I think it was one I'd always wanted to see, but I'd not seen it before. No, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was. Like I said, very very 90s film. Pretty much from the word go, because the opening song is Misirlou, the song that they use in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I mean, why? I mean, it was only obviously 4 years after Pulp Fiction. Quite why they decided to use that song when it was so
famous,
ingrained in sort of pop culture for being in Pulp Fiction. I don't know, but I mean, it works. But it's kind of like this just makes me think of Pulp Fiction.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought, yeah, I mean, it fits the scene perfectly. I mean, the setup is he's still working as this pizza boy, and he's he's like timing himself on a doing this fast. Just riding his moped basically around the city, and he ends it with this crazy like somersault off the bike, which is quite amusing. And but yeah, kind of you're watching it and you're like, oh, that's why they use the music from Pulp Fiction. It's such a famous track. Why? I mean, obviously you can do that. That's fine, and it does work. It's just an odd choice because of its familiarity from that film. The main thing, I suppose, about this film is it's got lots of great car chases in there, and if you love car chases, then this film has that in spades.
And there's no CGI or anything ridiculous like that. It's all real cars, real crashes, loads of stuntmen, cool stunts. Yeah, all you want to see. It's all in camera.
I do feel like it's interesting how, because obviously a lot of American films have lots of car chases in. We don't do them so much here, but the French also seem to do car chases particularly well. I've noticed. I mean, Ronin came out the same as this.
Yeah,
Same.
I mean that's obviously American director and mainly American cast, but obviously set in France and other European countries. Amazing car chases and that, and little bits of this did remind me of that, mainly because it's down sort of narrow streets in sort of old towns.
You're right. I apologise. I had this. I had it in my head that was a French film, but of course it's not a French film. It's set in France, and of course it's got Jean Reno in that film as well. But no, it's not a French film. So ignore me on that one. I mean, obviously, films like Bourne, they have car chases that have been done in France, and France maybe has just got good roads for car chases. I don't know.
I think narrow, windy streets and stuff like that, and you've got old buildings, and it also because of because it's narrow, it feels a lot. It's a lot more claustrophobic, and it feels riskier and more dangerous. Whereas if you're just on a big freeway or whatever, then it's not as while you're weaving in and out of cars, it's not as doesn't appear as perilous as stuff set in tighter confined spaces is.
Just after the opening shot, when he leaves, so he stops. He stops being a pizza delivery boy, and he becomes a taxi driver, and he has this kind of big send off at the pizza place he works at, and they have this kind of big bike rally, and like all these bikes turn up, and there's a few stunts going on and things like that. So it's got a lot of that going on. I mean, it is that kind of quintessential 90s feeling, I think. In its editing style. I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything. If you love 90s films, and we've grown up with a lot of 90s films ourselves, it's kind of got that all over the place, and that kind of editing and quirky dialogue, and just some great car chases in there. I mean, it's not a huge amount to say about this film, really.
No.
It's just a good, light-hearted romp with some car sequences and some nice characters. I mean, we've got Marion Cotillard in there, early role for her, but she hasn't had a lot to do other than look pretty. And
no, I mean she's the girlfriend of Daniel. I mean, much of the film is basically they're trying to have sex.
Basically, yeah.
And he keeps getting distracted by trying to catch these bank robbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's just sort of hanging around at his place waiting for him to come back. So she's not given a whole lot to do. I mean, it's a 90s film, so maybe the camera is a bit lecherous when it comes to the female characters. There's a female police sergeant that Emilienne has the hots for, and again the camera's a bit lechy on her as well. She's a policewoman. She's strong and capable. So from that perspective, maybe not too bad. But she's leggy and blonde and wears short skirts. But it was the 90s, and that was female characters in action movies, basically. But it could be a hell of a lot worse. They don't come off too bad, to be honest. They do have lines, and they have stuff to do. And
I think they I mean, most of the cast, I think, went on to do the sequels, except I think Marion Cotillard dropped out, or Cotillard, should I say?
After 3, I think, wasn't it?
She dropped out after the 3rd one. And then I think they all dropped out. There was the 5th one, wasn't there?
A 5th one a couple of years ago, yeah, and I think there's only a couple of surviving cast members. I'll say surviving. They haven't died. I mean, they've just carried on. Yeah, most of them are now not. Haven't continued for the 5th. I mean, the Taxi 4, I think, was 2007, so it's quite over 10-year gap between those two. So I think everyone's just had enough by now. I mean, Sami Nesseri, I think he must be about 60 by now. So I think boy racer, taxi driver. Not quite as plausible anymore for a 60-year-old guy.
No, but he worked really well. I didn't know him at all. I mean, he was quite old when he did this first one. I mean, I think he was like nearly pushing 40 when he did this one, and so even in it, you feel. Well, I don't know. I mean, some people don't. They spend all their lives doing jobs and they never really make it, and so it didn't feel necessarily unreal. And in fact, I think him as an actor, I was reading that he struggled for a long time. He wanted to become an actor. He wanted to work in cinema, but it took him a long time of struggling to get parts. And he didn't really. I think this was like he had been working since the late 80s, but this was kind of a breakout role for him, I think. And I think he does it really well. He's got a nice sense of
I think
timing.
He's fun. He's likable.
Yeah.
I think both of them are. And they have a good chemistry between the two guys. Sort of lots of banter and jokes and stuff. They're obviously quite different characters. But yeah, I think Yeah, it doesn't feel forced in any way. They're sort of the friendship that forms between them over the course of the film.
Yeah, and then the police guy, the policeman's got his mother is also kind of brought into it. She's played by Manuela Gurari. She makes all his dinners for him because he's got no kitchen in his house. She first meets. That's how those two are brought together because she
Yeah.
wants to. She's out in the town shopping, and she calls she hails his taxi, and then like jumps in. And he's like, "Where do you want to go?" And she's like, "You see that pink building just there?" It doesn't actually get to take her anywhere, but then he helps her back to her house with all her shopping, and then that's how he then meets the policeman in the subsequent scenes.
And the reason that he doesn't realise that he is a policeman when he gives him a lift is because she tells everyone that he works at IBM. because she doesn't want all her neighbours asking for him to get rid of their parking tickets.
I mean, like I said, there's not a huge amount of things to say about this film, really. It's just a nice, light-hearted romp, French romp that came out in the late 90s. And I think mainly if you like films with car chases and you haven't seen this, then I'd recommend it. If you don't want anything to stretch your mind too much, and you just want to sit back and a nice Sunday afternoon viewing, which it is today. That's when we're filming this. It's and again, I think if you like Luc Besson's early work, then maybe, and you don't, because I think that's he's obviously the big name here.
There was a shootout sort of in the middle of the film in the street. Which was sort of a bit reminiscent of Heat.
Yeah.
While the editing in the film and the shots, there's lots of wide shots where you can see what's going on. It's never confusing. That section, it's not the greatest editing or angles or shots that they could have used. It. At one point, I was like, "Who's shooting who?" I don't understand what's going on. So that was it. While it at first I was like, "Oh, this is like Heat. This is great," and then I was like, "I don't know who's that." Going on.
Yeah, I mean, actually saying that there's a chase scene I won't give anything away. There's a chase scene near the end of the film, which I mean, like the big chase scene is there at the end, and I think a couple part of the plot got a bit kind of. I was like, what's going on now? What are they doing? And then again, some of the cutting with the last chase scene, I thought didn't always work, and I suppose. I don't know. I mean, if it wasn't a huge budget film, and
it's not supposed to be taken seriously, is it? It's just a fun little romp.
Just a fun little film that I watched on Amazon Prime, but you actually have it on DVD.
I do, yes. There you go. I bought it. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched it for years, but yeah, that's how I originally watched it. It's not a great DVD. It's non-anamorphic. Remember when they did those? So if I had watched it on this, I would have had to stretch it on my TV, and it would have looked crap. So yeah, I watched it on Amazon Prime as well. And the picture one I thought was pretty good. I mean, Second Sight released it on Blu-ray in the UK back in 2014, I think. So yeah, that's probably it's obviously the HD version that they put out on disc is presumably what's on Amazon Prime. So yeah, it looks great. I did have to turn the subtitles on. I don't know what's up with Amazon. Why it doesn't just it knows I'm in the UK. Why it doesn't just put the subtitles on, I don't know. But you have to faff around turning them on.
Yeah, I always forget that happens. Like, you start watching it and you're like, because I watch it on I watch Amazon Prime on my Xbox, and of course I've only got the controller, and it's like, oh god, how do I do it? Oh, I've just turned the damn thing off again.
Yes. It's not the easiest thing to use with a console, is it?
No, not really. So that was Taxi, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button over there, and don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out over here. Come and find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and join us next week for another video.